I'm going to get underway pretty much straight away because I've got quite a lot to cover today. Quick introduction. Those who have not met me before, my name is Fred Copestake. I am founder of Brindis, which is a sales trading consultancy. Over the last 25 years, I've been around the world 14 times. I've worked in 38 different countries and trained over 10,000 salespeople, which is a real honor to do, a real privilege. It's given me a lot of insight into what's going on in the world of sales. And as a consequence, I've written 3 books around selling, the last being Ethical Selling, which is what I want to speak about today. And when I say it's a privilege to work with all these salespeople, it's a privilege to be asked to come and run this show on the Procurement Network. So yeah, I am going to be talking about sales, but I'm going to try and put the procurement spin on it, or add value to you guys by helping you understand what it is that salespeople should be doing, should be thinking, should be trying, how they should be engaging with you. I love questions. If you want to put questions into chat or comments into chat, I will try and keep an eye on that as well. But I will start to talk about ethical selling today. Ethical selling. So the latest book that came out in November 24. So yeah, it's pretty new. I'm not really sure the concept is new. That's something that we've known about and been thinking about for quite a long time. But I've tried to capture the essence, codify that so that salespeople can just do better when they're working with buyers, working with procurement, working with any kind of customer. So that's my challenge. That's my quest for today, is to share a little bit of thinking around that. As always, I'm going to try and simplify stuff. I think if I can simplify things and people can get their heads around it faster, then it does us all a favor, because it means we can start to implement stuff quicker. And I am all about implementation rather than just information. That said, there'll be quite a lot of information coming your way. And as always, if you're not watching or listening live, then do get in touch and fire any questions or any comments in by LinkedIn, by Alchemie Network, by email, by whatever way. Carrier pigeon, doesn't matter. You can certainly do that. So I'm going to kick off and have a think about ethical selling and what it is. And in the book, I go with various definitions and kind of explore this a little bit, even though my plan was not to go too much off into the clouds about getting into principles and morals and all this sort of thing. I wanted to make stuff applicable. I want salespeople to understand some of the things they can do day to day. So the way in which I often describe this now is that ethical selling is looking for win, win, win. Win, win, win. Now, many people will have come across the concept of win-win, mutual benefit. And absolutely, yes, that stays as a constant. I just added this other win in. So when we talk about win-win-win, what we're talking about is win for the customer, win for the company, and win for the conscience, the salesperson's conscience. They've got to do stuff in a right and proper way that they can look themselves in the mirror and be proud of that. Now, there's many reasons that we could go into, but again, if I strip those back to simple, it's what customers want and it works. When you look at the practices, they're best practice anyway. It's the best way to operate. So that's why it kind of makes sense to do. Now, doesn't always mean people do that. And again, there can be a whole variety of reasons, but I boil these down into what I call the Goldilocks Dilemma. So Goldilocks Dilemma, think about Goldilocks and 3 bears. Yeah, they kind of have the porridge, don't they? And there's like, one's too hot, one's too cold, and one's just right. And so too hot, too cold, we're going to swap out for too hard, too soft. So by that, what I mean is that salespeople will be thinking about this and saying, oh, this stuff just sounds as though it's too hard. There's going to be too much change. We're going to have to learn a whole new processes, a whole new models. It's just going to be difficult to implement. Sales managers will say, I'm going to get ton of resistance from my teams. They're not going to like it. Oh, no, we can't go down that route. And that's all wrong. It is all wrong. Now, the too soft version, that kind of comes out as, well, does that mean we're going to have to be really passive? Does that mean we're going to have to be pushover? Does that mean that we're going to have to give everything away? We're going to be so transparent that we're going to give all our margins and we're just going to take into the cleaners? And again, it's not that. That's not what it's about. When we start to understand how we can actually put stuff that works into play, we can see it is neither too hard nor too soft. Yeah, it's actually just right. It's actually just right. And so, like I said in the book, I didn't want to go off into whole kind of morals, principles, this kind of stuff. I wanted to give people practical ways in which they could apply this. And so my thoughts of sharing it with you guys in Procurement Network is you can see if salespeople are doing this. Yeah. Then if they are, you can respond to that, you can reciprocate, you can work in kind, so that you're going to get far better outcomes as a result. We can drive towards that win-win in exactly the same way. Just looking into chat there, Alex has said, yeah, same can be said for ethical procurement. And by that, let me just double check, Alex, are you talking about the too hard, too soft, Goldilocks dilemma type thing? Oh, no, we can't possibly ethical procurement. I won't hit my targets. I won't get my KPIs. I'll do rubbish deals. Salespeople will have me over a barrel. I wonder if that's what you mean by that. Because I suppose if you get both fighting thinking it's too hard, it's going to be an absolutely crazy situation. Whereas actually, if we both get it and we both operate in the right way, then we can start to get to those desired outcomes, mutually beneficial, a lot quicker. So in the book, there is the ethical model. And those who've met me will know I'm quite a simple person, so I like to make things as simple as possible so it's easy for all of us to remember. And so the ethical model is ETHICAL, spells ethical. And each of those elements are ways in which we, and I talk about we as the salespeople, can think about how we operate. And absolutely these can be reciprocated. So I'm going to have a spin through that, share some of those ideas, give some indicators as to what you might want to be looking for, and hopefully it'll be pretty clear in how you reciprocate, how you can respond to that. And so the first up, the E, stands for empathetic communication. Empathetic communication. So how do we achieve that? So what I talk about is like, well, we need to understand what empathy is. And to understand what empathy is, it's useful to understand what EQ, or emotional intelligence, is. Now, a lot of people will have heard of IQ. And actually, if you've tuned into this before, you'll have heard me talk about PQ, partnering skills, before. But emotional intelligence, this is the way in which we can recognize what we're thinking, what we're feeling, and respond to that. And also start to be a bit cuter in the way that we can read other people, perhaps have an idea of what they might be thinking, they might be feeling, and manage those relationships well. And the ability to put yourselves in one's shoes, empathy, is a key way to do that. So I've been training this and talking about this in the world of sales for a long time. It's just an obvious thing to do, because then we can understand what people are trying to achieve, what's important to them, what perspective they've already got, what perspectives we might be able to share. So understanding emotional intelligence, empathy, is a smart way to operate. And a couple of the keys to that. One is questioning, and the other is listening. So it's absolutely fundamental skills, communication skills, that we would use to communicate better. So again, in sales, we'll talk about different questioning models, from just basic open, closed, so yeah, yes, no type answers, to those more variable answers with the what, why, when, where, who, how questions can give us. But there's other models, there's other ways in which someone who's good at this can think about how they form questions. So we might use probing questions. So TED questions. I love TED questions. Tell me, explain, describe. The salesperson is asking you that stuff, it's because they're trying to make sense, but they're also entering a conversation, trying to help you make sense of stuff. So tell me more about that. Explain what you mean. Describe that. They might throw in a hypothetical question. If you had a limited budget, if you had a blank sheet of paper. Now, this stuff isn't to try and catch anybody out. It's to break people out of fixed thinking modes so we can then start to look at actually what could be the solution, what could be those outcomes we're trying to drive to. Good salesperson will often summarize. Yeah, so summarize to just make sure they've understood, but make sure that the person who's responding is understanding as well. We can ask those. I'll tell people to shut up. Silence. Yeah, let people think. If you're asking a good question, that will help people just gather their thoughts. Don't interrupt it. If you ask a really good question, let them work out what the answer is. But you can use non-verbal communication. You can use body language to encourage that. You can use body language to encourage that. And then really where we will take a more sophisticated, more advanced salesperson is to ask high gain questions. So high gain questions are very well thought out, very well researched, a planned question that is going to drive deeper levels of thinking. It's looking at probably shining a light or giving a different perspective or doing something just to change how we might be looking at something. There are other questioning models we'll look at. We might look at consultative questioning models, something like SPIN. But good salespeople, you should be in a decent conversation with them because they're asking questions, they're allowing you space to answer, and all the time it's useful because it's helping you think. Now, I could talk a whole episode on that. I might do an episode just purely on questioning, but I've set myself a goal today to talk through all of these elements. So the next element of the ethical model, the T, is for transparency and integrity. Transparency and integrity. So the one that some people might think, oh, no, I'm going to give too much away. No, transparency is about being open, being honest. It's this whole mindset that if we work like this, we will get a better response. And why would we not if we're thinking like a partner? This is the big trust builder. And one of, I think, probably the most effective ways of building trust and kind of being transparent, using transparency to build trust, is to lead with a flaw. F-L-A-W, flaw, fault. I learned this off a guy called Todd Capone. Todd wrote a book called The Transparency Sale, which is a cracking book, and he's a really, really interesting fella. Go and read that. But the lead with the flaw thing is, a very simple version is to say, well, if you're looking for this, we might not be the best option. But if you're also looking for this, this, and this, then absolutely we're the people you should be talking to. That's counterintuitive to many salespeople. They wouldn't dream of doing that. Oh, my job's to persuade somebody, to convince them, to hide the things that might not be so good. It's like, well, no, if they're not good, they're going to be found out. Open, honest, that will be refreshing to somebody who will then change the way in which they view how you go about the way you work. So if you see a salesperson, if you hear a salesperson doing that, yeah, they are deliberately trying to build that trust. They're being openly honest. And actually, if that's all you need, well, okay, they could probably point you in a better direction. Though I suspect they will probably have done the research to understand that these are other things that you are looking for, and that's where the conversation will go. So it's a really good way of being transparent. And as we work further down the buying process, and this is language we use, look at the buying process. The selling process is just there to support that. Okay, that's the mindset shift for a lot of people. But look at the buying process as we get further down the line. Mutual action plan. That's what I'm going to do, what you're going to do. When's it going to be done? Who's got responsibility for it? It's a really good way of being utterly transparent on how we're going to get to the outcomes that we're aiming for. So that's what we're looking for there with the transparency and integrity. Again, these are all chapters in the book, so like, I've kind of done a really quick summary of these to give you the feeling of this is what ethical selling would look like. So when we get to H is all about holistic value-centric approach. So we're looking at the whole, we're looking at what value is. And there's a colleague of mine who's got a brilliant way of talking about value, a guy called Mike Wilkinson. I was on a trip with him, and we were chatting on the plane. And he said, well, of course, Fred, value's a mystery. And I said, yes. And I nodded sagely. And then I turned around and said to him, Mike, what do you actually mean? And he said, well, it's a mystery. You don't know what it is. And then the customer doesn't even really know what it is. Our job is to work together to uncover that mystery, because value, it's defined by the customer. So it's like beauty. It's in the eye of the beholder. So we'll look at understanding value through this lens. It's got to be what the customer thinks. Now, salesperson can do smart stuff to help this. They can bring insights, perspectives. I've mentioned this already. They can bring stuff to the party that's going to trigger the thinking and maybe help people look at stuff in slightly different ways. A lesson that I'm giving to salespeople is that they have never, ever been in a position that they should be ill prepared for meetings and be unable to bring something like that. Using AI, using artificial intelligence to start putting yourself into the customer's world, however well you think you know it, there are ways in which you can use AI to be better than ever before. And if you're not doing that, you're actually doing a disservice to the customer. So again, I'm on out of order. Salespeople hate me saying this to procurement people, but if you're finding that salespeople aren't doing that, like we would say, qualify a customer out, you might want to qualify the salespeople out and find the people that are doing the work to make those meetings better. Okay, good. So I know I am going again at pace, but hopefully you're with me as we move on to the next element, which is the I of ethical. And this is all about informed decision making. This is the antithesis to the pushy salesperson, the opposite. They're trying to manipulate and connive their way and arm wrestle people into a decision. It's no. Buyer safety is the key concept here, where the customer's got to feel safe. Yeah. And so we've got to give people this freedom of choice. Okay, we'll give them the information and let them make that decision without manipulating or pushing. Now, for me, this starts right at the very beginning, and I've mentioned this already when I've talked about qualification. It takes two to tango, another of my favorite phrases. So it's really looking for people early doors that we think we can work together, that we're likely to be able to drive value, and that we have this kind of shared way of working in which we can comfortably operate like that. Informed decision making is a big area, and again, some more kind of old school salespeople might not get this, and they'd say, hey, no, this isn't, you missed the point, Fred. Our job's to make somebody buy something. No, that won't work as effectively as giving people the space and helping them and guiding them to make that decision because it's good for them. So again, another little clue that you're working with somebody that signs up to a kind of the ethical selling way of thinking. Moving on, we move to the C, which is about collaborative relationship building. So a couple of months ago, one of the previous episodes, I talked about think like partner, using partnering skills. That's what I wrote my first book about, selling through partnering skills. That one there, if you're watching, it's behind me, it's the red book. It's using PQ, partnering skills, to work better with customers, to collaborate, to co-create, to work on things together by aligning what it is that we're trying to do to get to the point where it's mutually beneficial for both of us. The framework I use when I'm training salespeople, value framework, and a good salesperson should be working through, I've got to get the right opportunities, I'm getting the right research in place so I can have the right conversation to be able to then have the right solutions being built together to drive the right outcomes. Now, you could argue that we start with the right outcomes because that's what we're driving for. Just looking into chat there, can we get both books on discounted price? Well, I'd say to salespeople, why? Somebody asks for a discount, ask them why. So, who's that? Why? I'm actually going to give you a way in which basically you can get the ethical selling stuff for free. So not even discounted. I'm going to do myself out of book sales here. Yeah, because it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. But I'll do that at the end. There we go. Got to wait till the end to work out how to do that. But I'd love to see what your answer is to why I should discount. Yeah, be funny. And Alex has said the link to them, undiscounted, is in the Alchemy shop. Okay, so that's collaborative relationship building, and remember there's an episode of the Sales Today Procurement Special where I talk all about those elements of partnering skills. We move on to A, which is adaptive negotiation. So adaptive negotiation. So why adaptive? So this is all about adapting to what we're working on and how we get to this point of agreement. Ultimately, that's what negotiation is. We're not trying to argue, we're trying to agree, are we not? So what I encourage people to do is think about a combined approach. There seems to be, at the moment, two schools of thinking around negotiation. Now, this is simplified, there's probably a lot more, but we've got the principle, the Harvard approach, and then there is the Chris Voss, never split the difference approach. Chris Voss, dead popular at the moment, ex-FBI. Apologies, Chris, if I've got your service wrong, but he's a crisis negotiator. Yeah, Harvard's more about commercial. Now, there's great things in both. I'm sometimes a bit dubious about the crisis stuff when we use it in commercial. And equally, maybe the Harvard stuff is a bit too theoretical. But let's bring them together. Let's just take the best bits for ourselves and work on it from that point of view. And think about the moments that we've got as we're working through a negotiation, because every time we say or do something, it changes that little path. We talk about these micro moments. And a friend of mine, Philip Brown, he talks about this a hell of a lot. Philip Brown from the Negotiation Club. Yeah, he talks about this and practicing the tactics, practicing how when these things get used, you respond to them and how you can use them to make the most of that negotiation. I see husband there. Yeah, you've answered. It could be a win-win situation. Yeah, it could be. It could be. I say I'm going to give you a better one anyway. But yeah, if it's win-win, I'm always up for discussion. We can have an adaptive negotiation around what that might look like. How about that? Yeah. So we're cracking on through ETH. ETHICA. The last one is L. And so here I'm talking about learning and growth. A good salesperson, and I suspect this will be exactly the same in the procurement world. So a good operator, let's say, is constantly learning. They're constantly looking for ways to improve, to grow. Yeah. New letter each. Yeah, thanks, Alex. Thanks for your support, sir. So yeah, we're looking to learn and grow. So growth mindset. So that is Carol Dweck. Carol Dweck talks about that and how we are open to new ideas and we'll try new stuff because we know that we'll be better from it. Unfortunately, in career as a trainer, I've met many people with closed mindset. Yeah, they know everything. They're not going to do anything different. They don't want to change. And I used to have a ton of hair. I used to have loads and loads of hair. It's all gone now. I put it all out and I'm trying to work with them. And I realised that no, it doesn't make any sense to work with them. Qualify out, practice what you preach, and work with the people that want to get better. Now, they might be stuck on the Dunning-Kruger curve. So Dunning-Kruger, this is where we talk about confidence next to competence. And often people who aren't so big in competence skill are often very, very confident. I think they're great because they don't know. Yeah. But then as we start to learn more stuff, then we start to get a little bit more kind of, oh, well, there's so much I don't know. And I'm not as good as I think I could be. So it's just recognizing that. And actually, if you're feeling a bit lack of confidence, you might actually know a ton of stuff and that's why you're feeling it. But equally, don't be so overconfident when you might not really be as competent as you think. So there's ways in which we can look at learning and growing, and this is why I I'm very, very happy to do this stuff, to share, so that procurement professionals can be growing as well by understanding from the sales point of view. So that's a rapid run through these, and I appreciate I'm chucking a ton of stuff at you. And Harry, who's written that there's lots of crossover, there's loads. Well, there has to be, doesn't it? It takes two to tango. I've used that expression already. And a good salesperson is aligning their sales process with a buying process. They're seeing where the customer is to make sure they're doing stuff which matches it. Now, for those who are going to be more proactive, I'll say you get involved earlier, and you might be using those insights and perspectives to open up the thinking that there is a different way, rather than waiting until further down the line when it might be too late. Because somebody's saying, hey, look, RFP, thinking about buying this. Oh, let me try and change everything you're thinking. Well, no, I've already done a ton of stuff. We get into process discussions there. But yeah, the idea, Alex, absolutely, is that ETHICAL is an easy way to remember this stuff. Okay, so the thing where I want to share something with you that's going to cost me book sales, but you know, I don't care because it's the right thing. It's wins for everybody. Is that I've been incredibly flattered, incredibly honoured that the Institute of Ethical Selling has taken the model, the ethical model, and has that at its core. Okay, so Institute of Ethical Selling offers orientation, certification, and information. Okay, orientation, it's training around that, which has got testing along the way so that they can get to the end. And if you've passed all the elements of test, you can be accredited as an ethical seller. So we want that to make it easier for you guys to look and say, somebody has the certi key, someone has the badge, which says, yeah, look, they've committed to this stuff, they've learned about it, that's how they think about selling and how they want to do it. You're very welcome to join that. The cost of which is, well, potentially zero. It's a freemium model around this. There is zero, and there's £150 a year. £150 a year opens up more elements, but for the basic, go through that trading in a little bit more depth than me just firing them out, trying to keep within my half-hour self-imposed time limit. You can do that. So what I will do is I will drop a link to that into the chat here. This is just about to go live. It goes fully live in a couple of weeks. So it goes on the 10th of September. But certainly you can sign up now and get on the wait list and get access to that stuff as well. So hopefully that is there now, so you can see that in the chat. Yes, it's gone in there. So there we go. That's how you can get access to that book. Do that. And Alex will also write a post sharing it. Brilliant. Thank you for that. Perhaps we'll do that around the actual launch on the 10th of September. Would be cool. So there we go. I feel as I've only just turned up and started talking, but the clock is telling me that's 29 minutes worth of downloading a hell of a lot of stuff. Lots of principles from microeconomics that relate to selling also to individuals. Yeah. So what I set out to do with this is to try to codify what best practice looks like, to make it easier for people to think about what this stuff is and to use it in environments when they're talking to you guys, talking to you procurement pros. I set myself this half-hour challenge, I suppose. Yeah, it is a challenge. And that's where I got to. Doesn't mean I'm going to rush away. If there are any questions, if there's any stuff that you would like to know, any other comments you want to make, I will be here for a few more minutes. The next time I'm here, though, I appreciate I've downloaded the stuff. I feel as though I've gone into lecture mode a little bit. So next time around, it's going to be with a friend. I'm going to phone a friend to come in and have a bit more dialogue. Current plan is that I get asked stuff by Procurement Pro, so I'm willing to put myself under that pressure. Alex has put, or me, yeah, because that's the first person I phoned. No, you're a friend, Alex. Of course you are. And I know they're going to be spicy questions. That's why I've had to just get into the rhythm of delivering first and sharing a lot of stuff, so that I can point back to these episodes as resources for you. But that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do next time. So yeah, a lot of stuff I appreciate. Maybe that just takes a little bit of time to absorb. You know where I'm at. Yeah, I'm in the Alchemie Network. You can DM me, you can message me on that. Keep an eye on that. I can I can answer any questions. I might answer the question publicly so everyone can kind of see that. So if you've got it, other people might. Or you get me on LinkedIn. Or you might see this. I take this out and put it on the podcast anyway. So try and spread the word. Try and get more folk into the Alchemie Network too. And you might be listening to this on that. You might be listening on the Sales Today either YouTube channel or through its podcast. It's his podcast thing. So that is where I wanted to get to. I'm just looking in chat. I know in the past I've been guilty of not keeping up with it, and there's been stuff that's rolled down and I missed them, and at the end like to the questions I'm like, oh, but there doesn't seem to be a lot because I was probably in transmit mode fairly strongly. Yeah, so the ethical framework, some things to look out for on what salespeople should be hopefully signed up, or at least using in the way they work. That's where I wanted to be. So if there is nothing else, thank you guys for your time. Thank you for taking a moment to listen. And again, you know where I'm at if you have any questions. Take care.